Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. My understanding is that last night there were at least 4 major sponsored parties that went till 4 or 5 in the morning, so you're real troopers to be here. I will tell you that there's never been a more exciting time to be in the digital payments and commerce business. And so for the next 90 minutes, we're going to do a deep dive into what that means. But before we jump in, I wanted to tell you how special you are. For this session, we published it through Mobile World Congress. We had over 2,000 people who applied to be part of this group. I believe we accepted 250, of which more people showed up than I would have expected for this time in the morning. And in that 250, we were very careful to have a lot of diversity in the group. So sitting among you, we have folks from some of the world's largest consumer packaged good companies, from some of the world's largest consulting firms. We have startups. We have, there was one guy from Ghana. So we have a really interesting diversity of folks who are in the room today. And actually, we've designed this session to not be a bunch of talking heads on stage with PowerPoint. We'll do a little of that, but really to be much more interactive, so there'll be some Q&A. So before we kick off, I also wanted to bring on stage Jonathan Vaux to join me as co-MC of this event, who is the head of Innovation Partnerships for Visa Europe.
Correct. Hey. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I'm really excited to be here and to be launching this. Many people who know me believe and understand that I have felt that we have the most incredible network that is connected to so many places. And the chance to open that up to all the creativity, to all the imagination of many of you, and to use that to fix customer problems is just an incredible opportunity. So I'm really excited. So thank you.
Great. So here is what we're going to do over the next few minutes. So in a second, we're going to bring up Susan French, who's our head of Visa Developer, to talk a little bit about that program. Then what we'll do, this is where it will become more interactive, is we have a set of really great panelists we'll bring on stage, and we'll talk about innovation that's happening in our space. And then we've allocated some time at the end. You'll see around the room there are different monitors. So if anyone wants to talk to any of us individually, if you want to talk to each other, and if you want to take a look at the Visa Developer Platform, like it's fully available, you can look at it, kick the tire, see exactly what it is. So that's what we're going to do over the next few minutes. Sound good? Great. Well, let's bring up Susan French to kick this off.
Thank you and good morning. And I echo Mark and Jonathan's gratitude for you all coming this morning, especially those of you who closed down the bar last night. And I get the honor of being the talking head / PowerPoint part of this presentation. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about what is a very transformational event in Visa's history. Assuming, of course, that the clicker works. So Mark kind of stole a thunder a bit already on the agenda for today, but we'll talk a little bit about the background, how it is that Visa came to this decision, to the transformation that we're making, a little bit about the Visa Developer Program and our platform, a little bit more than we've talked about earlier about the actual product APIs that are available today on the site, and then sort of where we go from here. And then we'll transition into the panel discussion part of the conversation. Just in case anybody in this room doesn't know who Visa is, we'll talk just a second about us. We are the world's largest global payments company. Last year, we processed $4.9 trillion worth of payment volume on Visa-branded cards globally, or at least in the part of the globe that Visa Inc. is responsible for. We have 2.4 billion cards in circulation. We connect 36 million merchant acceptance locations with 14,000 financial institutions, and we do that roughly 150 million times a day around the globe. Visa Developer is a major transformational event for Visa. It is a significant change in the way we will design, build, and deliver products going forward. And it is the first time in our 50-year history where we've agreed to make our network, our data, our risk services, our value-added services available to partners, clients, and others as open APIs. This is a big step for us. It introduces a powerful set of tools and services for you, our clients, our partners, to configure, combine, and bring your ideas for new consumer-facing, merchant-facing services to life. A little bit of background on why this is so important. The commerce ecosystem we all live in is evolving as we speak from one which has for the last 50 years been primarily closed proprietary system where the card brands, Visa included, determine sort of the entire stack from the physical media, the card itself and what it looked like and what was where on the card, to the way that card was used to process transactions involving a very complex, semantically heavy set of prescribed financial or transaction formats that talk to Visa's core data and applications in a way that was very tightly controlled and a closed garden in which very few institutions were allowed to participate. And that worked great for a long time. I mean, it's highly successful. If you just remember the statistics a slide or two ago, the closed network is one of the reasons why Visa is able to have the reliability, security, and scale that we have. But the world is changing. You know, all around you, this whole conference is all about open networks, open collaboration, the ability to build and innovate new products and services quickly. And that it happens because there are many players in our ecosystem who are building applications for consumers and merchants, and they want to be able to take advantage of Visa's scale, but they can't communicate with us the way our banks and acquirers have historically done. They need to communicate via APIs. So Facebook wants to offer person-to-person transfer capabilities as part of Messenger. They can't talk to us with an ISO message. They have to talk to us with an API. So we create Visa Direct API in order for them to do that. Visa Checkout needs to be able to easily and quickly integrate into merchant websites of all sizes and shapes around the world, and we needed to create a set of APIs to do that. All the pays, Apple Pay, Android Pay, Samsung Pay, Capital One Pay, Lloyd's Pay, everybody's pay, exist because we have the ability now with APIs to be able to tokenize transactions and put credentials for payments for contactless safely and securely onto mobile devices. And you heard the API word a couple dozen times already in what I've had to say. I mean, APIs are the reason why those capabilities exist. And they open up a whole area of possibilities, not only for Visa, but for all sorts of new businesses and new capabilities. You just look at some of these examples of new businesses that are primarily driven by the ability to consume other people's APIs and to, in turn, open up APIs to others to consume. Netflix is a great example. You know, they started out not that many years ago as a mail order distributor of DVDs. Now they're primarily a fully electronic business. And the reason they can do that is because they can consume APIs from content creators, movies, TV, music, as well as all of these they need to bill you for your monthly service and the other things that they do. At the same time, they expose APIs of their own that allow your cable company, your phone, your laptop, your television to consume those APIs of theirs and play the music, the videos, the films that we all want to see. So just to level set, what are these APIs and why are they important? Applications are the things that sit on our phone, that sit on our websites, that deliver end-user functionality to you and me as consumers. Every time you check your email or you check the weather or the stock price today at Visa or whatever the case might be, you're using an app. And an app is a collection of functionality. It's got a payment service, it's got a map, it's got an enrollment function, it's got whatever it needs to function. Those products, those functionalities are provided by product providers like Visa, like Google, like many of you probably. And APIs are the things that connect those apps to those products so that an app developer can build, their business, build their app by connecting to services that are made available by others. So Visa Developer is the name we've given to the Visa strategic initiative that will enable issuers, acquirers, merchants, technology companies, hopefully everyone in this room, to be able to more easily build faster, secure ways to power commerce. Innovation message is about the fact that you're building a new app, a new consumer experience, a new business. You don't have to write all the functionality yourself anymore to make that happen. You can buy the best-of-breed map, the best-of-breed payment services, the best-of-breed enrollment services, whatever that might be, by consuming services as APIs that are provided by a whole host of providers, and now including Visa to do that. The second thing is speed. If you don't have to write 70% of your application code yourself, you can get yourself to market, you can get your app to you can build your business a lot much faster. And those are two really critical concepts that all of us in digital commerce are striving to achieve with our API strategies, with our developer programs, with our application development programs. There's also another important message in there, and that is Visa Developer represents a fundamental shift in the way Visa does business. We're moving away from made by Visa with the Visa stamp on it and the Visa logo on it and the typical way Visa does things where we build top to bottom stack of a product and we hand it to you and we say, here, to one where we are refactoring all of our functionality, or almost all of it, into APIs that you can pick and choose to consume and use to enable the development of your applications. Whether you're an issuer building an application for a consumer, you're an acquirer building applications for merchants, you're a merchant building an application for your customers, you're a technology provider who's building an application for licensing to others. Visa's role now is to enable you to use our services in combination with yours, other third parties, and other things to create innovative and engaging consumer experiences that you might not otherwise be able to do. What does that mean for you as a partner of Visa? It means a couple things. First, it means faster access to Visa APIs and new products. Everything that we make available, as we make it available as an API, is available online in our new developer center, which you can look at afterwards if you're interested, where you can see all the products and APIs that Visa has available together. And your development teams can very quickly register, start using the applications, start developing code. You can see all the APIs Visa has to offer, which means you can pick this one and this one and this one and mash them together in ways that you might not even realized before that Visa could help you support. And we've got a team of experts, the Visa Developer Solutions team, who can help you figure out what our APIs do, what's the best one for the job based on what you're trying to accomplish, how can we work with you to ideate a new product solution that embeds Visa APIs and potentially non-Visa APIs and create something net new and interesting for your consumers. And all of that sits on top of Visa, the world's trusted payment network, the largest payment network in the world, and all of the reliability, security, availability that comes with that network. So a couple of key features of the Visa Developer Program. We've talked already a bit about the breadth and depth of APIs. Right now, today, on the site, you can access APIs for making and taking payments, for reducing fraud and managing risk, and for providing some general network services. We will be slowly but surely over the rest of the next year or two migrating almost all of Visa's existing functionality via APIs onto the platform, to the point where we are almost exclusively an API-first product development, product delivery organization. This is not a sideline for Visa. We are fundamentally changing as a company to an API-first design and distribution model. On the developer program platform, you can find comprehensive implementation guides for our APIs, SDKs, tech specs, test data, get credentials, start testing almost immediately, and engage with the team of developers at Visa who can help you more quickly learn how to use the APIs and integrate them into your application. Later this year, we'll be introducing what we call the Integrated Sandbox, which is a way for application developers who are mashing together multiple APIs from different products or across different services to be able to test them end to end, including a simulation of the VisaNet actual transaction processing environment with a consistent set of test data. So you can create an app that takes a real-time alert, takes a Visa checkout, takes a payment services, and be able to test it end to end and see how the transaction will flow through VisaNet and how it will engage with the APIs you've chosen to use. So, a quick summary of what is available today on the platform. There are roughly 45 APIs representing roughly more than 100 endpoint connections, actual methods. In the payment methods category, we have CyberSource Payments. CyberSource is Visa's payment gateway payment service provider. And the CyberSource Payments API provides a set of methods for accepting e-commerce payments. So authorizations, capture, sale, void, refund, credit, the kind of basic capabilities that you would need as an e-commerce merchant to be able to accept payments. Visa Checkout, which is being demonstrated and talked about a great deal at this conference and others, is the service we provide that enables consumers to create an account, store their payment credentials securely at Visa, and then use that as an express checkout capability and participating merchants to provide the merchant with their payment credentials, their shipping address, their billing address, without the need to re-enter that information every time they buy something from a participating merchant. Visa Direct is our push payment service, which is the ability to push funds onto almost any Visa debit or credit card in the world. So those billions of cardholders that Visa supports today, most of them have cards that can receive payments or can receive credits from merchants for refunds, for loan services providers, for person-to-person payments. In the risk and fraud category, we have APIs for our new mobile location confirmation service, which is a set of APIs that enable us to compare the location of an enrolled user's mobile device with the location of the merchant they're making a payment or making a purchase from. So that many of our issues have traveling customers who have experienced the problem of having their cards declined at the point of sale in another country. Happened to me last week in Australia. Despite the fact that I got an email from my bank saying I didn't have to tell them I was traveling anymore, they still declined me. But mobile location confirmation gives us the opportunity to say, is Susan's phone in Australia? Yes. Is Susan buying something from a merchant in Australia? Yes. Then that's probably a good transaction, don't decline it, which is a very important service for high traveler, high affluent cardholders. Visa Transaction Alerts, as you saw in the video, is a way for us to enable cardholders to set rules to determine when you might want to be alerted in near real time that a transaction of some sort has occurred on your card. So if you want to know that about every transaction over a certain dollar amount, or that occurred in a certain country, or that's an ATM withdrawal, there's a set of rules that the APIs enable you to set. Then as a consumer, you can set up that set of rules and receive near real-time alerts whenever a transaction on your cards occur, and as a text message, an alert that's pushed to your mobile banking application or some other application, or as an email. Visa Consumer Transaction Controls, which is a new service we just announced last week, is an extension of that capability. So in addition to setting rules for alerting, consumers can set rules that determine whether or not their card will actually be usable. So if you lose your card, you can't find it, you don't necessarily want to replace it yet again, but you do want to turn your card off until you can find it. The Consumer Transaction Controls API allows a provider to enable a consumer to do that via their mobile device. Turn it on, turn it off, set limits, tell the world I don't want my card to be used internationally, I don't want my card to be used during certain times of day. I want to set spending limits. Let me spend $200 this month, but no more on my cards. It's a great way to teach your kids financial responsibility around their cards, or provide the capability for caregivers or small business employees to have access to spending accounts, but have them limited in use. And the Visa token service, which there's also been a great deal of conversation about, is the set of APIs that enable merchants to tokenize an e-commerce purchase transaction, or to tokenize their card on file repositories, so that they can, over time, avoid the need to manage PAN data or account data, live account data in their registries or card on file databases. Then there's a set of general services that are the kinds of things that you probably need when you're building an application of any type that involves payments. Foreign exchange rates is access to Visa's foreign exchange rates for cross-border transactions, so that you can see what the conversion is going to be and you can convert the sending and receiving amounts. Payment account attributes is an API that lets you look up the characteristics of a particular account. So is it a debit or a credit? Is it a premium, or is it who's the issuer? What's the billing currency? The kinds of attributes of a card account that you might want to know if you're using or registering an account in a merchant or consumer app. Payment account validation provides a variety of ways to determine that an account is valid and in good standing, so that you can determine if you're, for example, asking a consumer to register a card in a wallet or in a mobile app, that the account is good. And the last one that's available right now is the Visa Global ATM Locator, which is a set of APIs we provide that allows consumers to locate an ATM anywhere in the 200 countries that Visa does business, and get directions from their current location to the ATM of their choice. Those APIs are available now. You can see them later today if you like on the Developer Center, and developers are able to, and in fact are, starting to use them to build apps. Coming next, so there's a whole series of products and APIs that are coming over the course of the rest of this year and next year. The exact order, sequence, timing is still being determined. Some of that will be driven by feedback we get from our partners about what's priority for them and what's the most valuable service we can offer. But the kinds of things that will be coming in the next waves of release on the platform are things like travel notification service, which is a new set of APIs that enables you as a consumer to tell your bank that you're going to be traveling, and for them to tell us that, so that when a transaction comes through, it's less likely to be declined. There's a series of merchant locator, merchant search, and merchant monitoring applications that are APIs that will be coming. Our commercial services, which is Visa Payables Automation and Visa Payments Controls, which are supply chain management APIs for B2B transactions involving Visa cards. The remaining Visa token services that support HCE, NFC proximity payments, and in-app purchases will be coming later this year. CyberSource, our payment services provider, will be moving more and more of their merchant payment gateway services onto the platform for other payment types, other types of payment vehicles, more acquirers, moving their risk management tools for merchants, their merchant analytics onto the platform. Visa Commerce Network will be joining the developer program later on this year. Visa Commerce Network is a company that we bought earlier last year that does networked of merchant funded offers, so that you can use the APIs from the Visa Commerce Network if you're a merchant to work with other merchants in the consortium to make offers in pairs. So for example, you are using a ride-sharing service and you arrive here in Barcelona and you use that ride-sharing service. That ride-sharing services app can serve up an offer to go to the restaurant. We went to dinner last night. You use the same card you used to pay for your ride-sharing service, and if you do that, your next ride is free. So the ability to syndicate, create those kinds of merchant-funded offers, and then make them available through mobile apps and other things is part of the API set that will be coming with Visa Commerce Network later in the year. And then there are some things that are a little bit farther out. Visa Risk Manager is a set of tools and APIs Visa offers that enables issuers to manage their risk and fraud alerting processes, and a bunch of new data APIs. One of the things we hear a lot of from our clients is Visa has all of this data, petabytes and petabytes and petabytes of data about all the transactions that occur on Visa cards in the world. We would really like to be able to consume that data from an API. We don't make that easy to do today. Typically, that is a report or have to log onto an online screen to get it. But we're working on a whole series of APIs that will enable appropriately entitled users to be able to receive data from Visa as raw data consumable via API, so that you can combine it with your own data, combine it with third-party data, and create interesting new analytics, either to run your own business with or to deliver to your end consumer, whether that end consumer is a merchant or a consumer, a person. So over time, we will make available via APIs through the Visa Developer Program a number of different ways to take or make payments, to reduce fraud, increase security of the network, get data and analytics, build loyalty, manage your supply chain, manage debit and credit prepaid card programs, register and maintain customer profiles, provide other kinds of information that's useful to your consumers, and provide geolocation services. Just a quick couple of words more about some of the interesting API sets that we have. So mobile location confirmation I talked about a bit earlier. If my bank had been using mobile location confirmation, I probably would not have gotten my card declined in Sydney. But it has a set of APIs that enables a client to enroll a cardholder in a device in the service, to capture geolocation information from that enrolled device's phone, and then to periodically update us about the location of that enrolled consumer's phone. So when that transaction comes into VisaNet, we compare what we know about where the phone is with what we know about who the merchant is and where the merchant's located, and help our issuers do a better job of approving international transactions for travelers. As I mentioned earlier, Visa Direct is our push payment service. It includes a set of APIs that enable you to, if you want to, pull funds from a Visa card, then push those funds to another Visa card. Examples of use cases for that are things like person-to-person funds transfer. In my opening slide, I talked about Facebook enabling person-to-person payments via their Messenger app, or Square Cash enabling the same via their app. They do that by using the Visa Direct APIs to pull the funds from your account and push them to your friends. There are also lots of funds disbursement examples. You want to pay a reward to a customer for being loyal to you. You want to convert points into cash. You want to disperse a loan via push payment to a debit card instead of the expense of cash or check. So the push payment capability Visa has enables all sorts of capabilities like that to replace cash and checks in our world with digital commerce. Visa Token Service, as I mentioned, is a set of APIs that enables you, a token requester, to swap a PAN, sensitive account information that a cardholder has, with a digital token. And Visa manages the relationship between that PAN and the digital token, so that that token can serve to make payments, to authenticate the consumer. But if there's ever any compromise of that token, the underlying payment instrument is still valid, doesn't need to be replaced. All we have to do is replace the token. And because the tokens are domain restricted, meaning a token is only good for the merchant who requested it or for the device it's provisioned to, even if the token is stolen, the utility of it in any kind of fraudster's application is much, much smaller. And Visa Checkout, an easy way for consumers to not have to fill out the lengthy checkout forms that exist on most merchant e-commerce websites, By creating a Visa checkout account and providing your card details, your shipping addresses, your billing addresses, when you're ready to buy something at the next e-commerce merchant that supports Visa checkout, all you have to do is provide your Visa checkout account credentials and all that other information, your payment account details, your shipping and billing addresses passed behind the scenes to the merchant so the merchant can process your transaction more seamlessly. One of the things that we really hope to see happening now that our APIs are public and developers have an opportunity to use them is to see innovative new applications created by mashing together Visa APIs and non-Visa APIs to create interesting new experiences. And this is just an example of one that one of our teams thought up about sort of digital storefront. That if you're a merchant, you could create a mobile app that includes Visa checkout to make checking out simple. That includes Facebook public feed so you can share your purchase with your friends or you can get your friend's opinion about the thing that you're about to buy. Visa transaction alerts, which pops an alert when that transaction occurs, which you as a merchant, for example, could use to prompt the consumer to do something else, like provide a review of the restaurant meal you just ate, or enroll in a more extended warranty service. You can use a Google Maps API and that same API to show, in that same app to show the consumer sort of where they were or where the purchase occurred. You can use CyberSource to process the actual payment in the background. You could use Instagram to let your consumer post a photo for their friends of the thing they just bought. APIs enable all that to happen. Visa APIs are part of the story, but by mashing them all together enables a merchant to create a digital experience for a consumer that they might not otherwise be able to do. Similarly, if you're an issuer, you can create an enriched issuer wallet service for your consumers that has Visa checkout to enable them to easily enroll or potentially provide their credentials as part of a pay-to person-to-person payment service. You can give them consumer transaction controls so they have more ability to manage their accounts and participate in the own fraud management of their own accounts. You can link it to PlayStation, you can link it to iTunes so that those credentials can be used to play games, to buy music online easily, and use the Visa token service to tokenize the credentials that on the phone that allow you to buy those games and listen to that music. So, ready to get started? Ready to go? All right. So to get started, start by going to visa.com/developer and explore what's available. Get information about the program, get information about the APIs, look at the business value that those APIs represent if you're a business decision maker. Think about what you might do with what Visa has to offer. When you're ready to actually start coding, have your developers, or if you're a developer yourself, come to developer.visa.com and look at the APIs, look at the SDKs, read the documentation, create an app, run some test data, play with the sandbox, make it work. Test, develop, create. Let your imagination go crazy when you create a new application. When you're ready to commercialize that application, step 3, you work with us to complete the necessary reviews. It's a commercial application, so there are contracts, there are licenses, there's pricing, there's risk reviews, other things that have to happen. And you have to work with Visa in order to move your application from the sandbox to production. And then once those things are all done, we do kind of one last readiness check to make sure that all of the prerequisites are complete. And once they are, we'll issue production credentials to your app. You can start running production runtime traffic at Visa and surprise and delight your customers. So that's the end of the talking head PowerPoint section. So thank you for your attention, and let's do build together. As Mark had mentioned, we're going to have a panel of industry experts come up here in a minute and talk about their digital innovation strategies, the things that are important to them, their priorities that they're seeing, the industry changes they're seeing, and how sort of the world of APIs plays in making that happen. So I will invite the panelists to come up. And while we're doing that and getting themselves settled, if there are any sort of quick questions that you'd like me to answer, I'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, we'll have a broader sort of Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion. So, any quick questions? No? Okay, then I'll turn it over to Mark.
Great. All right, we're going to pivot the conversation a little bit. With that as a foundation, thank you, Susan. We have an awesome panel that really represents a diversity of things happening in our industry. And before I jump in and start asking you questions, I want to set a little context. So, and perhaps even give you some worthless trivia. What you may or may not know is that this is my corporate Visa card. This thing was created in 1958 in Fresno, California. I don't know if any of you have been to Fresno. Probably not. It's in the middle of nowhere. And the first Visa card was issued. And when you look at it, they actually modeled it after a military dog tag, right? The things that someone in the Army would wear around their neck. And it's amazing to me that here we are at Mobile World Congress in 2016, and this thing is still going, right? This piece of plastic with your number. And we've sort of gotten everything out of it we could. So we've added a chip. We've added a mag stripe. We've added contactless, right? There's a bunch of things that we've done. But I think if you were going to create this today, you probably wouldn't say, let's create a piece of plastic, right? You would say, software is the way we would build this service. And so that's really what this is about, right? And on top of that, I think it's what we're seeing in the marketplace is that the winning model is platforms, right? So companies that think of themselves as platforms are the ones that win. So what's the social platform, right? Facebook. And I suspect many in this room may use their OAuth API to log into another site. Or maybe you use the Google Maps API because it's much better to just consume the Google Maps API into your app rather than try and build your own map of the world and maintain and update that. So with that as context, what I want to do is ask some of these experts how they're thinking about innovation in this space of payments and commerce. So why don't I start with, by the way, their names are all up there, so what we're not going to do is spend a lot of time introducing them. I think we should just jump in. Aaron,
Morning.
So you're with Lloyds, largest bank in the UK, been around for hundreds of years, incredibly successful. You're in charge of payments, and there's a huge digital transformation that's happening in your industry and in your market. How do you do that transformation? Like, what have you learned about doing that at a big company?
Yeah, morning everybody. It's a good question, and it's one that we've obviously spent lots of time thinking about and doing. We actually do share data today as a business anyway. We've got lots of different use cases, but the big thing has been how we've started doing that and how we do it today. So originally, or historically, we've got lots of existing platforms, and we've always thought about customer need and security and privacy, and that meant that the use cases that we've been delivering have always been a walled garden type environment, so that we can ensure that when we deliver things to market, they are secure and fitting a customer need. Going forward, that obviously changes when we've got to open up our data to third parties, driven by regulation, but also customer needs. So PSD2 obviously is one example, but PSD2, although it says we are opening our data. So PSD2 is obviously allowing us, meaning we have to open our data. We're still very driven by the customer needs and providing a service on top of that.
Great. Super. Why don't I go to you, Jonathan, my partner in crime. Jonathan has arguably the best job at Visa Europe. So he's the head of innovation partnerships. And so because of that, you get to work with all the best clients throughout Europe. And you're seeing so many changes happen. I'd be interested to know, what do you see happening? What are the trends? What are the things that you're excited about?
So the thing I think happened more than anything else is that every part of what was a long value chain is now broken down into constituent elements. So customers can choose the best experience for each different part of that journey. And therefore, you can look at pretty much any customer problem today and go, if I can take that technology from there, that technology from there, I can probably solve for it. And that's really, really exciting, because you then get to talk to biometrics organizations, shopping cart providers, and design incredibly strong customer experiences, of which payment is a really important feature. But primarily that's about make it as invisible and frictionless, as safe as possible, as opposed to trying to over-engineer it.
Yeah. It's interesting, where I'm based in the Visa's headquarters in San Francisco. We have the great benefit of being in the heart of Silicon Valley. And it's amazing to see exactly that play out. I mean, we work a lot with Uber. And when you talk to them, they will tell you that 70% of their code in production isn't theirs. They're just consuming services from other digital companies. And so APIs have become sort of the connective tissue for how companies interact.
I mean, I was with a car rental company about 2 weeks ago who were really nervous about, how do I improve the customer experience? We believe that a customer has to queue, has to present their driving license, has to do all these different things. And I was thinking, I know there's a technology that could solve for that, so a customer could avoid any of that pain when they land after a 14-hour flight at San Francisco airport or something like that. And that's what's really exciting about this, is trying to create these really innovative solutions.
Yeah, that's why I started off by saying there's never been a more exciting time to be in payments. It's going to be embedded in so many different experiences. Okay, Marco number 1, you're up next. Vipera, you're in this great position of working with companies around the world, integrating different solutions. And I'd be interested to get your take on, what are you hearing from clients, and what are the consumer trends and things that are happening that you think will really change this whole space?
Yes, good morning. Yes, we work with banks primarily. And the first thing I can say is that we consumers are much more ready and eager for services than the average banks are providing us with today. I think that there are 3 main drivers for consumers, and they should also be the drivers for the bank of the future. One is connectivity, simplicity, and personalization. Connectivity, I want to trade with anyone at any time, anywhere. That's the mobile, which allows me to do that. But it's also, I want to transfer money instantly. That's why, the great success of P2P services that we see today. And typing in and selecting an address from the address book, a name, and send the money, compared to typing in an IBAN, it's not exactly the same experience, which goes into simplicity. It has to be extremely simple. I want the service to be simple, as it's simple using Uber, as it's simple using Airbnb. It must be that way. And personalization, which probably is a differentiator for the banks. Banks and personalization and customer engagement is not exactly, the good things. Whereas if you see Airbnb, if you see Facebook, if you see the like of Google, they know where we stayed, they know what we looked for, what we like. And every time we go back and touch their services, they provide us a much better experience. So that's actually what I believe, what we see consumers would expect from the banks now. And I think that Visa Developer is probably a huge step in that direction, because it helps banks to implement services much faster and with much more, let's say, quality.
I think that's one of the reasons we're so excited about this launch. I'm going to go to you next on that, Susan. But I really like that model of connectivity, simplicity and personalization.
Absolutely.
That's really powerful. Speaking of power, Susan, thank you for presentation. What many of you may or may not know in the audience is we at Visa just launched the Visa Developer 2 weeks ago, so it's brand new. And when I spoke earlier about platforms are the winning business model, and that when you get the economies of scale, those are and the network effects that come with that, that's the winning model. So we're really excited because Visa, as the world's largest payments and commerce network, has now moved to this open model. And so we've been live for 2 weeks, and I'd be fascinated. What have we learned? What's been surprising?
Well, yeah, my baby is almost 3 weeks old now. And we've been amazed at the uptake we've had already just in that 3 weeks of variety of developers from major name banks, clients, typical users of our services today, to individual developers, individual people who on their own have come onto the site to do things, and blockchain startups, payment processing startups, loyalty startups, all sorts of clients. So I've personally been both surprised and pleased by the variety of organizations who have decided to try and take advantage of Visa APIs. And so it's early days still. It's hard to tell what will come, but we've been really pleased with the results so far.
That's great. Off to a good start.
Yep.
Marco Bressan, you're not going to get off the hook. Marco is the chief data scientist at BBVA, the great Spanish bank. And it's interesting, in my role as the global head of new product development and R&D at Visa, I get to travel all over the world, talk to different clients. And without a doubt, BBVA always comes up as, wow, they seem to be getting this digital transformation right. Like, what are they doing? What works, what doesn't work? And a lot of that work is being powered by you and your team. You've built this incredible data infrastructure and analytics and the engine that powers new experiences. I'd love for you to share with this group how you think about using data to transform companies and create new experiences.
Thank you, Mark. That is true. The bank has been very aggressive with respect to its digital transformation. I personally believe there's at least two vectors that if you're serious about digital transformation, you really have to take into account. And one is develop a data strategy, understand how to capture value from that data. A lot of the services that we were seeing here have a lot to do with the data and with the quality of Visa handling that data. You wouldn't be able to provide an effective risk API if you're not good at managing risk, right? And the other dimension is becoming a platform. Well, a colleague of mine once said that a true digital company is one that also has developers as clients, right? And if you don't have the developers, you're still in the old world. And I think what Visa is doing right now is moving exactly in that direction. So from a data perspective, the payments have a lot to tell, right? And a few years ago in BBVA, we did this very small intellectual step that was 4 years ago or 5 years ago. We did it together with MIT, and we started looking at payments differently. We had payments until that time were basically these Excel sheets where people only would look at who paid who and how much, right? And suddenly we started to look at other columns of that Excel sheet. And those other columns were where that payment took place, at what place in time, and if we could cross the history of this person making this payment with other things, or of the vendor, and so forth. So suddenly payments were an event, right? A geo-localized event. So we could look at that data from a completely different standpoint. And we started doing things like silly things like saying, oh, suddenly we can tell people if this bar is going to be full of men or women, right? So they can choose whether to go to that bar. Or we can say what